Our ancient ancestors were just as ingenious as we are. If it weren't for the innovations they made thousands of years ago, we wouldn't be able to keep pushing the boundaries of invention today. In fact, they were so remarkably inventive that we still don't fully comprehend some of their strangest and most extraordinary creations. So, let's explore a few of them in today's video. Number 15. Sri Lanka Wind Furnace. Iron smelting is a dangerous job even in today's factories. But more than 1,000 years ago, Sri Lankans had already developed an ingenious technique that combined safety with efficiency. During the 9th or 10th century, they designed forced draft shaft furnaces powered by natural wind. These setups, found near Samanalawewa, were positioned on western-facing hills, right where seasonal monsoon winds hit hardest. Regular breezes wouldn't cut it, but monsoon gusts delivered just enough force to produce high-quality, high-carbon steel. The design removed the need for below and constant manual labor. Archaeological studies suggest this was once the dominant industry in the area and likely pushed South Asia's early steel production ahead of the rest of the world. But it wasn't entirely safe. Workers still had to stand outside during raging monsoons. So maybe not quite as safe as it sounds. Either way, the concept was centuries ahead of its time. Number 14. The torquetum. The torquetum is one of those rare devices that feels too advanced for its own era. While credited to the 12th century polymath Jabir ibn Aflah, some believe earlier scholars, possibly even the ancient Egyptian mathematician Ptolemy, first envisioned it. A torquetum is a mechanical instrument designed for astronomy. It measures celestial coordinates in 3 different systems: ecliptic, equatorial, and horizontal. Even better, it can convert data between the 3, without any math on the user's part. It's essentially an analog astronomical computer. Sadly, no surviving examples from Jabir's era remain, but torqueta from the 16th century still exist, and they're stunning. Some were even crafted in gold. That's how far ahead of their time they were. Practical enough to be used for centuries, and beautiful enough to be preserved. The torquetum was more than a tool. It was a masterstroke of both science and design, capable of capturing the heavens without needing batteries, screens, or a single line of complex code. Number 13. Ancient Greek fire grenade. If you think hand grenades began with modern warfare, you're off by several centuries. Their roots go back to the Byzantine Empire and the 7th century's fearsome Greek fire. While this particular clay grenade dates to the 14th century, it mirrors the design of modern devices. Found off the coast of Israel in 2016, the object is acorn-shaped, complete with an opening at the top for a fuse. It would have been filled with a flammable liquid, likely alcohol, and then hurled at enemy ships to ignite chaos. Though less powerful than today's explosives, it would have been devastating to a wooden vessel. These early grenades were a product of innovation born out of necessity, lightweight, simple, and deadly. The Crusaders may have left this one behind, but it still speaks volumes. It's proof that compact destruction isn't a modern concept, and that ancient warfare wasn't as crude as we sometimes imagine. The ingenuity behind it was as real then as now. Number 12. Ancient Chinese refrigerator. Refrigeration without electricity might sound impossible today, but over 2,500 years ago, the ancient Chinese had already figured it out. During the Warring States period, people used clever bronze and copper containers with a double-layered design to preserve perishable goods. A reference in the Shijing, aka the Book of Songs, mentions these insulated vessels, where ice was packed between the inner and outer compartments to keep contents cold. If needed, hot water could be used instead, turning the same container into a portable heater. Whenever these ancient coolers are uncovered, they're always decorated with intricate carvings, suggesting they belong to the upper class. These were practical, versatile, and beautifully crafted. They may not have used freon or coils, but they served the same function, keeping food fresh. The idea of thermal regulation via insulation wasn't just understood, it was mastered. These vessels show that even thousands of years ago, the wealthy didn't just store food, they stored it smart. Number 11. The Ghauri Wall of Iran. Some ancient wonders don't hide, they just get ignored. Case in point, the Ghauri Wall in Iran. Stretching roughly 71 miles, this stone barrier has stood quietly for over 1,600 years, yet barely anyone outside the region has taken notice. In scale, it rivals Hadrian's Wall in the UK, but it lacks the fame. More than 35 million square feet of stone went into its construction, which is a super colossal effort, even by today's standards. Pottery shards and remnants of buildings found along the wall hint at a once bustling border, likely guarded and maintained by a sizable workforce. Despite that, no historical records mention its purpose. Locals have always known it was there, casually referring to it as the Ghauri Wall, though its original name and its builders remain unknown. Judging by its 10-foot height and 13-foot thickness, it likely had defensive value. But until further evidence appears, the wall's full story stays frustratingly out of reach. Number 10. Siloam Tunnel. The Siloam Tunnel is one of history's most impressive engineering feats. It's an artificial water channel carved in the city of David, just outside Jerusalem, during the 8th century BCE. We know its age thanks to the Siloam inscription, which outlines how two teams dug from opposite ends and managed to meet in the middle. The tunnel's slight bends and irregular angles show they didn't get it right at first, but eventually, they aligned. Some scholars believe this tunnel is the one mentioned in 2 Kings 20:20 of the Hebrew Bible, though that's still debated. It connects the Gihon Spring to the Pool of Siloam and was likely built during an Assyrian threat, ensuring Jerusalem had access to fresh water during a siege. At 1/3 of a mile long, the entire structure was carved by hand using primitive tools. Well, that alone makes it super amazing. Number 9. Algeria's underground irrigation. While Roman aqueducts often get the glory, one of the most advanced ancient irrigation systems sits beneath Algeria. Known as Foggara or Kanat, these channels run underground, guiding water down slopes to a pool exactly where it's needed. They were likely inspired by Persian technology dating back over 2,000 years, but Algeria's version is far more expansive. Dug through hillsides and mountainsides, the tunnels deliver consistent, clean water to dry land without surface exposure, minimizing evaporation and maximizing control. The Foggara system in the Adrar region remains one of the oldest and largest in North Africa, but today, it's under threat. Modern buildings, schools, clinics, and homes have been constructed above these ancient water paths, and because the Foggara weakens the earth above it, the structures are slowly collapsing. It's now a delicate balancing act, preserving ancient infrastructure without destroying modern life above it. This underground marvel is still not completely understood. Number 8. The ancient text of Agastya Samhita. Could ancient Indians generate electricity 3,000 years ago? It sounds far-fetched, but one ancient Sanskrit text suggests they may have. The Agastya Samhita, preserved in Ujjain's Prince's Library, describes a simple electric battery. It outlines how to create power using a copper plate, copper sulfate, zinc powder, and wet sawdust in an earthen pot. The energy it produced was called Mitra Varuna, and when modern scientists replicated the design, the cell generated an open-circuit voltage of 1.138. The text also suggests that 100 of these pots connected in sequence could split water into its base gases. Although it doesn't mention oxygen or hydrogen by name, that's clearly what it means. The battery worked, but ancient users didn't seem to find many uses for it. Still, the knowledge is there. These weren't just spiritual thinkers. They were hands-on engineers experimenting with real chemistry. But how is it even possible? Number 7. Stone structure found in Torriano. In March 2023, during fiber optic work in the Italian town of Torriano, construction crews hit something unexpected. A mysterious stone-lined structure made of heavy slabs arranged like a rectangular box with a roof. At first, archaeologists thought it might be a burial cyst, but the interior held only wet, silty soil. That clue suggested it once helped control water. The leading theory is that it was a raised causeway or crossing path built to allow carts through a flowing stream. Some believe it could have been a primitive drain pipe, though the rough-cut stone doesn't fit that use well. Its size and the effort involved make it clear this wasn't a casual build. It took serious planning and manpower. Without bones or artifacts, there's no way to date it precisely. Still, the mystery remains. The structure has now been reburied for protection, while the fiber optic cables were installed just above it, leaving the puzzle sealed again underground. Number 6. Inuit wooden maps. When is a map not a map? Well, when it's a storytelling tool. In 1885, a Danish expedition led by Gustav Holm traveled along Greenland's eastern coast. Along the way, Holm encountered an Inuit hunter named Kunit. The two exchanged goods. Holm offered basic supplies, and Kunit handed over a pair of carved wooden maps. These oddly shaped pieces depicted the coastline north of Ammassalik, where Kunit lived. The larger one represented the shore, and the smaller one showed nearby islands. They weren't perfectly accurate, but that didn't matter. These weren't made for navigation. They were cultural artifacts. Inuit hunters used them to tell stories, pointing out locations as they described their fishing routes or hunting paths, allowing their listeners to follow along visually. The carved grooves weren't decorative either. They marked the trails where hunters carried their kayaks across land. Anyone planning to follow those routes could use these for reference. As far as ancient technologies go, few are this personal or this practical. Number 5. Girsu's ancient bridge. Before the Romans or Greeks, the ancient Sumerians had already mastered bridge building. Around 5,000 years ago, in the ancient city of Ngirsu, sometimes transcribed as Girsu, now part of modern-day Iraq, a bridge was constructed that likely connected different areas of the early settlement. The waterway it once spanned has since vanished, making the structure hard to identify at first. When it was initially discovered in the 1920s, many believed it to be a dam or the foundation of a temple. But during 21st century excavations, archaeologists unearthed clay tablets referencing a nearby bridge, confirming its real purpose. Built from baked bricks and laid by hand, the bridge would have taken years to complete. The site remained largely unprotected and exposed for decades, viewed as unimportant until now. Given its age and craftsmanship, it's now being recognized as the oldest bridge ever discovered. And without a doubt, it's amazing. Number 4. Heroes Aeolipoli. Before locomotives transformed transportation, Hero of Alexandria created a device that worked on the same principle, 2,000 years ahead of its time. Known as the Aeolipoli or Heron's engine, the invention consisted of a hollow metal sphere mounted above a water boiler. As the water inside turned to steam, it exited through nozzles on the sphere, causing it to spin. In later designs, Hero moved the boiler inside the sphere, improving efficiency. The engine was fully functional, but Hero didn't find a practical use for it. As a result, it remained a novelty rather than a tool. It wasn't until the 17th century that Islamic scientist Taqi al-Din revisited the concept, and another 100 years before steam tech truly took off in Britain. Hero's device was brilliant, but it arrived too early. It's a reminder that even good things can be forgotten if the world isn't ready for them. Number 3. Binary code in antiquity. Binary code didn't originate with computers. It goes back much further. In fact, both ancient India and Polynesia show signs of using binary systems long before Europe formalized it. On Mangareva, an island in French Polynesia, a hybrid binary decimal system existed by 1450 CE. Numbers above 10 were expressed using combinations of base 2 and base 10, with select milestones, 20, 40, and 6080, getting distinct single-word names. In India, binary roots stretch even deeper. The Chanda Shastra, a 2,000-year-old Sanskrit text written by Pingala, outlines poetic meters using light and heavy syllables. These correspond directly to modern binary 0 and 1. While Pingala didn't invent the concept of zero itself, his work hints at binary logic centuries before it was formalized. The text wasn't about digits, it was about rhythm, structure, and balance. Still, its parallels to digital logic are uncanny. Long before digital devices, these thinkers were already manipulating data, just in ways no one recognized until centuries later. Number 2. Pyramid of Quiquilco. No one knows who built the Pyramid of Quiquilco, located in what's now southern Mexico City. The best guess is that a thriving civilization lived there over 3,000 years ago, only to be wiped out by the eruption of the Zittel volcano in the 1st century. Archaeologists have studied the nearby terrain and determined it was farmed for centuries before being swallowed by lava. Ironically, the people of Quiquilco likely worshipped a fire deity, only to be destroyed by the very element they revered. While some believe the disaster caused their total extinction, others argue that survivors migrated north, spreading their cultural practices across Mesoamerica. Some even suggest they contributed to the rise of Teotihuacan. The ruins now sit silent, with only tarantulas and rattlesnakes calling the area home. Whatever civilization once flourished here left behind very little. Just a single rounded pyramid made of stone, now a big mystery. Number 1. Egyptian hair dye nanotech. Nanoscience might seem like a modern breakthrough, but ancient Egyptians were already dabbling in similar techniques over 4,000 years ago. In 2006, French scientist Dr. Philippe Walter and his team at the National Center for Scientific Research in Paris, working with L'Oréal, examined an ancient hair dye formula. They discovered it relied on wet chemistry to produce lead chloride compounds, which were then mixed with lead sulfide to create a black pigment. This mixture formed tiny galena nanocrystals. When applied to hair, the paste reacted with natural keratins to produce a dark, lasting color. While it's unlikely these early chemists understood the molecular science behind their method, the complexity suggests deliberate experimentation. They didn't stumble upon this by accident. Instead, it shows that ancient cultures were more scientifically advanced than they're often given credit for. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.